Hello again, this is Oliver and welcome back to yet another short video where I explain different analysis techniques for Sudoku. If you like my videos, be sure and give me the thumbs up, and you might think of subscribing as well, be greatly appreciated. Hello, at long last we've come to the bit that I like, chains, singles chains we'll start off with. Now some people find this very difficult, so I'm going to take it slowly. I'm going to go through two examples, and both of these are from the Little Gogs website, and I'll have a link to those down below. Now the first one, we're going to, the idea of this chain is you have a beginning and an end. And either one can be the beginning and the end. And in this one, we're looking at the possibles 2, and we're starting off in cell H8. Then we head over west to H1. Then we go up to diagonally across to G3, and then to F3, and that's the end of the chain. So we start at H8, we end at F3. And the theory is, if we have a good chain, that any cell with a possible in it that can see both the start and the end, the head and the tail of that chain, we can get rid of the possible in that cell. And if you look at those two, the intersection of both of those is at F8. So that is our target cell. Now, let's look at a little bit more detail. Based on what we already know about our good old strong and weak links, right? Let's see what type of links we have. We'll start again at H8. So from H8 to H1, there's only two possibles in that row, so that's a strong link. From H1 to G3, there are only two possibles in that house, so that's a strong link. And from G3 to F3, there are only two possibles in that column, so that's a strong link. So we have all strong links here. We'll go to the beginning again. H8. Okay, if that is not a 2, and this is important, we always start with it not. So we get rid of the 2 there, that's not a 2. That means H1 is a 2, which means G3 is not a 2, which means F3 is a 2. So all the 2's on that row F would be set to naught, set to 0, not there. That's if we start off with the beginning of our chain being not a 2. We now go to the end of the chain and we start off again and we say, okay, if this end is not a 2, what happens? Well then, G3 is a 2, H1 is not a 2, H8 is a 2, so all the 2's in the column 8 we could get rid of. And the only thing that's common between the two occurrences there is the 2 in F8. So we know whether we start with a 2, whether the beginning or the end is a 2 or not a 2. That 2 in F8 we can get rid of. And that's the whole theory of chains. Now, that was the simple one. It does get a little bit more difficult. So we'll go on now to the second example that's in Duncan's website. Right, the second one is a little bit more complex. The chain that we're going to do is starting off here on A4. So we're going to go from A4 to D4, across to E5, across to E2, down to J2, and we'll end then on J3. So we're starting on A4, ending on J3. What cell can see the beginning and the end? Where's the intersection of the two of those? Well, the intersection is there at A3. So that's our target cell. We're going to try and see, can we get rid of the 5 in that cell? Now, the first thing we should do is let's just write down whether they're strong or weak links. So the first link between A4 and D4, that's a strong link. There's only 2 in that column. Between D4 and E5, there's only 2 in that house, so that's a strong link. Between E5 and E2, that's a strong link, there's only 2 in that row. Between E2 and J2, there's actually 4 in that row, so that's a weak link. And then finally between J2 and J3, there you go, that's a strong link. All right, so we got weak and strong links. Now the important thing, as I said before, When we're testing it out, you start off by setting it to not true. So we set this to not true. There is a 5. There's no 5. There is a 5. And that's why it's important that this one is a 5, because we now have a weak link. So there is a 5. There's not a 5. There is a 5. Therefore, that is not true. So back here again, we'd finished here with it was a 5. Change it now to not a 5. Not a 5 is a 5. Important because we're on a weak link. Not a 5 is a 5. Not a 5 is a 5. So again, this is not true. So irrespective of whether this is a 5 or is not a 5, that is not true and we can get rid of it. But, and this is quite important. Suppose we'd started at the other end and we said, okay, our other end was down here. If we start, or at either end, if we start as saying this is a 5, we'd have is a 5, not a 5, we can't go any further. So we always start, whichever end of the link we're starting on, we always start with is not true. Okay? Right, that's it. And the next one now is going to be on pairs chains, which is even more exciting. See you then. Until then, slán tamil.